out of that decision changes everything. But obviously, when you guys come on, people are going to say, the Gambles, that's, Procter & Gamble, who is this guy, their New World Order. My whole point is we have to expect that, we're going to see people from prominent families, people from the establishment, people from Hollywood, people from all over the system as things get crazier and crazier that are going to start trying to fix things. And so, how did anything in your background help prime you to be awake to this? Have you ever been approached by other elites and, told to basically, shut up? Because I know I have been, or offered things. Have you ever had any experiences in that realm?
Well, I've been a pretty out-of-the-box thinker like you for a long time. I was, very successful in elite schools. So I was, recruited for various corporations and organizations. I was wined and dined at the Bohemian Club one day for lunch. But I realized very quick, even though I didn't understand what was really going on behind the scenes in those things, it never felt good to me. I didn't like the tenor of the conversations. They seemed very arrogant and controlling. So I just went off on my other path because I didn't think I was going to find any of the answers or the fulfillment that I was looking for there. I'm happy to say that I have not taken any flack from other people in that social set so far, and my family has been very supportive. I want to be very clear that the Gamble of Procter & Gamble legacy, that's a single company family, based around soap and candles. And I'm thankful for the guy who started it, that I ended up inheriting just enough money that I could basically spend my life doing this kind of research and make this kind of film. And that just about tapped me out. But it's not anywhere in the same realm as a banking family that is continuing to multiply that fractional reserve, fiat scam.
Sure, they have the money machines.
Thousands of corporations and carry an agenda to dominate other people's lives.
Well, exactly. People always, say, hey, the elite doesn't want to mess up the economy. They're making money. Well, literally, they're making money. They print it, they issue it, and they've been able to take over the whole planet through fraud. And of course, I brought that up because COINTELPRO will just use that, or people psychologically will use that as an example to not look at it, because anybody who even has a famous name, obviously I know about big families. Even if there was a ton of money, it runs out, it goes away. I've got that. And people are judged by their deeds, not by their name. You can go back in my lineage if people knew it and find all sorts of interesting characters, which I won't even say on air because people have a heyday with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's true for anybody. You don't want to be defined by your relatives. And I think Thrive speaks for itself. It's what we spend our time and our money and our resources and our reputations and everything that we've put into this and risked in order to be helpful. So I think the proof is in the pudding of how are we spending our time and what are we doing with our lives, not who are our distant...
Well, sure. Sure, well, I can listen to you, and I can see the film and tell you guys are, awake, enlightened folks that realize we've got a serious problem, and so I commend what you're doing. That's why we're carrying the film at Infowars.com and hope folks get it and get it out to people, because I think it is going to get people thinking and just moving in the right direction instead of sitting in the ditch. We've only got a few minutes left and then one more short segment. You guys have got the floor. What are some other facets of the film? You get into the cancer rates going up. You get into the free liberty lifestyle and true individualism. I know that you said that's one of the most controversial parts of the film.
Yeah, that's what I'd love to focus on for a moment, because there is such power, moral power and integrity to the liberty movement. But a lot of people in the liberty movement are so idealistic that they're not willing to talk about transition strategies. They just, wish it would be perfect right now, and it's not. And it's not going to be tomorrow or a year from now. So I haven't found a whole lot of constructive solutions transitions. And so we spent years working with some of the best thinkers that we could find to try to create kind of a business plan for transitioning that includes, I think, what some of the left has spent a lot of time and compassion on to do well, to take care of people in transition, to take care of the soil that needs to be replenished, and people who've been so damaged by a corrupt system that they don't have homes and they don't have health care and so forth. For a little while, it would be great to help take care of those most wounded, but not by creating new taxes, which is just a new violation, but by instead reducing the military budget, getting rid of the Federal Reserve, and that would literally free up, $1 to $2 trillion a year that could fund a few years of transition while the prosperity is returning to our civilization. And particularly in what we call the second stage or the second track, which is really where Ron Paul is focusing a lot on stopping these wars of aggression, having an honest money system, and shrinking the government down to the protection of individual liberties rather than creating all sorts of legislations to take over people's lives. And I believe myself that we're actually not going to make it as a species unless we learn how to convert to a true society of voluntary association. Because as soon as that mandatory tax is allowed, then a few people have what I call the seed of tyranny, which has always grown until it's unstoppable without some kind of revolution.
That's right. Government only creates tyranny. It's always the engine of our problems. The founders knew that. We've got to make it as small as possible. Let's talk about that straight ahead. Amazing interview. The film's Thrive. Available at Infowars.com. Get it today. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, continuing here with the Thrive movement. You're not just putting out a film. You've done research. You've gone out and had fact checkers, research how this world is really governed. Talk some about that research that you put in the film that really, in a very professional and well-researched manner, shows the pyramid structure, shows the elite families, shows how they're engineering this. I mean, it powerfully, again, proves this open conspiracy against free societies. Break that down for folks.
Well, one of the most interesting things to me, Alex, was that we, through basing our work on really reputable work like yours and then having everything fact-checked, we were confident that the powers that shouldn't be would not go after the information because first of all, they can't argue with it, and secondly, they don't want people talking about it, so that they would try to undermine us with kind of baseless debunking sites and that type of thing. But the actual information itself, as you know as well as anyone, is so compellingly interlaced when you see how all the interlacing board of directors amongst the major corporations and banks and the military and so forth is so overwhelmingly obvious once you begin to see it. And then the headlines every day through things like NDAA and ACTA and SOPA and so forth, it only just keeps confirming what you've been saying for decades. So the fact-checking that we've done, the fact-checking that you've done, I think has done its job. It's created a firm foundation to the claims that we're making so that in masses now, people are going, okay, this is the story that makes sense. Now what can we do about it? And one of the ways that we've been so thrilled in the response that we're getting is especially we're getting a strong response from women and from young people. And I think especially Kimberly's presence in the film and just a tone that she set as director, directing me as narrator, kept reminding me to give the viewer their own emotional space to experience very challenging and difficult information, and at the same time to wrap the whole thing in concrete and viable solutions. And in my experience of a lifetime of activism, once the women and especially the moms take on a cause, it's going to happen.
And one of the things in terms of what's available on the site, we have a resource tree so that all of the materials that we used, books, videos, people, organizations, as well as the resources that others who were valuable to us use, we've made available by sector. So you can actually go down to the bottom of the home page. There's something on the bottom of most pages. There's something called a resource tree. And when you click on it, you can explore it by sector. And then, and part of that is we want to encourage critical thinking. It's not to believe us. It's, like you said in the beginning, to go ahead and start thinking about these things and doing the research yourself. And then we even have something called reality check so that you can sort of see what's your baseline understanding of this agenda in order to then move on to engage in more leveraged solutions. Because part of what got me into this initially was to see that my experience of people didn't support what was happening in the world. I actually find that people are good and innovative and caring. And so what was it that was happening? So in addition to the resource tree, our solution strategy has a personal component for you to find out what is your own purpose and passion, because we need each person to do what they're most inclined to do. There's a place for everybody in this, and not any one person can do it all. And I think that...
Kimberly?
Yeah.
Sure. Kimberly Foster, I know you guys have got to go, but if you can hold 1 minute, you can do 5 more minutes and finish up the solution.
Sure.
Talking to Foster and Kimberly Gamble, makers of the Thrive film, available at Infowars.com, in a larger movement to try to get people awake to what's happening and really bridge the gap between the control left and right paradigm and just get people back to being basic humans who are trying to build a better, more free society through free association. I'll have to have you guys back up again soon to take calls and also get more into solutions. And I want Kimberly to have a minute or two here to talk about some solutions. But first, I don't get into infighting. I don't do it. And I did, though, 4 or 5 years ago, get the maker of Zeitgeist on and argue with him a little bit, because I said, what if I don't want to go live and have the big centralized computer run everything that'll make it all fair, because who programs the computer? And he said, well, you'll be re-educated. You'll be taken to a re-education center. And I got mad at him. And then I invited him on trying to be friendly about a year ago, and he said, you've got to agree that I didn't say you have to go to re-education. I'm like, I went and watched the show again, and he did say that. And I'm not trying to get in a fight with whatever his stage name is or whatever, Peter Joseph. I didn't try to get in a fight with him. I don't want to fight the Zeitgeist people, but, I mean, I'm sorry. A collectivism, from my experience, is a bloody nightmare. And the New York Times, of course, endorsed it and all the rest of it, which is not a good sign. I'm not trying to get in a fight with them, but because you guys are trying to start a movement and having success and bridge the left-right gap and all this stuff, I think you guys are, wholesome and legitimate and mean well. What is your brief comment and then a few final solutions on Zeitgeist and the whole Zeitgeist movement?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Peter Joseph's intention there, and I think he revealed a tremendous amount of useful information in parts of the films. And my main problems with the films were, one, economically. I think that we have a different understanding about money. I don't think money is evil. I think that dishonest money is corrupt and it destroys people's lives and society. But I think a medium of exchange, if it's honest, is always going to be needed and practical. And secondly, I also have a horror of these high-tech collectivist types of cities that, I think a lot of the technology that Jacques Fresco suggests is going to be a terrific assistance to
sure, but the centralization of it is nightmare.
Exactly. I agree.
The Soviets 100 years ago pushed their whole agenda, as you know, in this sci-fi, utopia. And it doesn't build a utopia. It builds a nightmare.
I agree with that. I think we really need to be careful about that. I think it was disingenuous. I think that it was honest on their parts. I think it's an honest misunderstanding of something that they haven't seen really from the liberty versus collectivist point of view and on the economics. But I do disagree in the same way that you're saying.
Well, I've seen some of their events online. It's extreme arrogance and really getting off on they've got the answer. And the truth is we don't have the answer. We need the diversity of liberty is the answer, and it's got to be worked out. Anytime you hear this is the silver bullet, historically, and plus in my gut, run.
Yeah. Well, the person who introduced me to you, Alex, was my son, Trevor, and I will be forever indebted. He was really the one who woke me up to the conspiracy, to what's going on with the money, and also to liberty. I remember the day he said, have you heard of this guy, Alex Jones? And I said, no, what is he doing? Well, he makes some movies, and he handed me a stack of movies, that changed my life. And for those of you who may not know what we're talking about with the liberty perspective, he's written a terrific book called The Secrets to Nonviolent Prosperity, the Principles of Liberty, that lay out a lot of this in ways that you don't get in casual conversations with people.
I'll tell you what, let's have we're out of time, Kimberly, and I want to get more in the solutions. Let's have you back up in a few weeks. If you can do it. It was hard to get you guys on. You're so busy. Come on in a few weeks and bring Trevor along. This is really exciting. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. It's an honor.